What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video, and happy Saturday to all of you out there, and welcome to another installment of the Saturday Chat and Chill. In this week's installment, we are actually going to be making up for a little bit of lost time. We did not get a chance to break down and talk about our opinions on any of the events that came with this latest update this week because of the postponement, the weird maintenance schedule, etc. So in today's video, I figure what we'll do is we'll sit down and we'll talk about the events. We'll break them all down, we'll give our opinions on them, but we'll also talk about a very, very important event or events that are going to be going away over this weekend as well, that you're going to want to make sure that you guys are taking full advantage of, because you do not want to miss out on any of those juicy rewards. But before we go ahead and get into all of that and more, make sure if you guys haven't already done so, you smash that like button and subscribe. And without further ado, you already know what time it is. Cue that intro. Alright, you guys, now before we go ahead and talk about the June update, I want to talk about an update that's actually going to be going away over this weekend, because there is a very important event that will be leaving us, and that is going to be the DICE event. So this DICE event is going to be ending over the weekend. As you guys can see, we have one day left on here, and really the biggest thing about this is you're just going to want to make sure that you use up all the dice possible that you have acquired from this DICE event mission. So make sure that you guys are doing everything possible in order to get as many of these as you can, in order to get as many round trips around this board as possible, because as we've pointed out before, but I will repeat it one more time, you can get an SS generic memory at the end of this. So I just wanted to go ahead and put this in here as an aside here at the beginning. That way you guys had that reminder there, but make sure that you do your best to get through this. At least make sure that you redeem all of your dice. I actually was able to get my 20th round around here today, so I know this is going to be coming down to the wire for quite a few people. For other people, it may not even happen, and you're probably not even going to get the generic memory, depending on your luck, but definitely pay attention to this. Make sure that you guys are doing your due diligence, and let's go ahead and talk about the June update, right? Because the big June update had quite a bit to come along with it, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it this week, so I just want to go ahead and dive right in. So we do have a new rush dungeon, obviously. This is going to be the Wings of Freedom rush dungeon. Now, of course, this is going to be able to give you those juicy rubies every day. However, the big talking point, since these things are always pretty much the same across the board, is of course going to be the exchange shop, right? So this time around, the exchange shop is actually not necessarily, in my opinion, the better of the ones that we've had over the past couple of months, but it does have this new card set in the Imagination, which the In the Imagination set is pretty much at this point standard fare for what we've come to expect from these types of things. So we can take a look at it real quick, and I can show you guys, since I've actually gone ahead and gotten them at this point. So I've actually already cleared this rush dungeon. Let's see here. So the In the Imagination set is as follows, right? So you're going to be getting an increase to your attack for each card, which you'll love to see, but then you're going to be increasing your 1+ 9,999 fighters burn, starlight, and bleed damage by 75%, and increasing your 1+ 9,999 fighters attack by 22% for 7 seconds upon landing an active skill on a cooldown of 10 seconds. So I had said this is standard fare for the rush dungeons because honestly, this is pretty much asimilar to the rush dungeon sets we've been getting recently. This is a fantastic set, a really, really good set for the characters that are going to be able to equip it. Of course, any of the characters that are going to have Burn Explosion, they are going to love to have this card set. In general, the biggest thing that I think is a downside to this is, of course, the fact that a character such as Nameless can't use it or carry it, unfortunately, which would be really cool if he could, but beggars can't be choosers. There's plenty of options for this card set, but this is a really, really solid card set. It ends up being one of the better ones for EX Krohnen as well. If you don't have any of the new EX sets from the banner, such as Successor set or the newest set, Fugitive, which is, you know, we've talked about in yesterday's video in particular, extremely powerful on Krohnen. So in general, I think the Rush Dungeon event this time around is pretty much just kind of even keel. I don't think there's been much variance here from the past rush dungeons to make it stand out. It's pretty much just going to be, again, standard fare, but just make sure that you guys are grinding that card set. You will definitely want to pick up at least one copy of it, and if anything, make sure that you try to get the 2 by the end of the event also, if possible. So that is going to be the rush dungeon, pretty much just your same old in my opinion. I think that it's about time they start kind of changing things up with those rush dungeons a little bit, at least maybe even with the card sets, changing the effects just a tad, but I digress. Now, let's talk about the Defeat the Enemies on the Beach event. So the Defeat the Enemies on the Beach event is interesting, right? So if we take a look at this event, basically, it's a very simple event, but it's actually kind of deceiving. So the deception comes in the fact that when you're playing this for the first time, it may seem very simple and straightforward. This is actually kind of quite the challenge. So in general, with this one, I think that the bigger thing about this event is just going to come down to challenging yourself to try and see how many points you can acquire on this. I'm actually going to spend a little bit of time on this weekend. I haven't gotten a chance to really mess with it too much, but I do think that this is quite the fun event. Now, the reason why you'd be doing this event in the first place is you're going to notice that you're going to be getting these guys here. So we've been getting quite a few of these types of boxes in the recent past. So it's really nice that we've been getting more of these and they're making these more accessible. So you're going to see here the thresholds aren't too bad. However, this is actually tied to something else that I'm going to show you guys. So if we take a look here at your event tabs, so right here, you're going to be able to pick up this commemorative photo, which honestly is just going to be something that's going to sit in your inventory forever. It's kind of a souvenir type thing, but it's still something nice to have. You can only pick it up if you score 40,000 points in the Defeat the Enemies on the Beach event. So in order to do that, you're going to have some pretty quick thumbs in order to get through this, but at the same time, you always want to try and challenge yourself and pick that stuff up if possible. But in general, I think this event is very simple, but again, very challenging. It's something that's quite a bit of fun, and I think that is something that, at the end of the day, is just something different from what we've normally been used to with these events, which is always welcome at this point, considering we do tend to get very samey events from update to update. So the next thing we'll go ahead and talk about here is we're going to talk about the tower, right? So we did get a tower with this. The first thing you're going to notice is we only had 2 characters that we could use with this. So whereas with the last tower for EX Angel, we were actually able to use the KOF 12 Leona in this, which was very nice because she was a unified banner fest for all of you free-to-plays out there. This time around, they opted to go away from that and just give us Krohnen and Kyo, the characters represented on the banner. Now, do note that Kyo, most people should have at this point. He's a character that a lot of people are probably going to have, particularly from that event that they have running in like your craft event and so on. But at the same time, it isn't anything that I think is going to be super easy just with a A1 Kyo or just a unawakened Kyo, so take that for what you will. But anyway, when it comes to this tower here, in general, it isn't necessarily as accessible as the last one, which is kind of a bit of a downside, unfortunately. When it comes to the prizes here, however, they do make up for that a little bit because the prizes here this time around were a little bit better than the last couple. The biggest thing here is, of course, going to be this guy here. You're getting a BS and SS Fighter Memory Mystery Box. Now, it is a mystery box, and it is a shallow pool of characters. It's really the ones that have kind of been re-released or buffed over the past several months. But in general, I think that this is actually a lot better of a final reward than what we've been getting, at least in my opinion. I actually ended up getting an SS Iori memory from this, which was pretty nice because I needed those. So in general, it isn't necessarily anything that is going to be world-beating as far as your prizes are concerned, but it is a nice final prize. Other prizes in here, though, are decent. The biggest things in here are going to be Elite Enhancement Hammers, really, and then some of these capsules, and then these guys here. So they are continuing the trend of having the Krohnen coins in here, so the corresponding coins to whatever event is going on at the time for the update are tending to be kind of the new standard items that are going to be in these towers, which, for better or for worse, in lieu of other rewards that we might prefer, this is at least something to where it makes these a little accessible for everybody, at least a lot easier than some of the other ways that you're going to be able to pick these up that we'll talk about. But in general, I think that it's fine. I just don't think that it's anything that's super special. You know, these towers used to be super rewarding. This one's a little bit better than the last several. In fact, I'd say it's quite a bit better by comparison, but I still think that these are still a big step down from where they were at the beginning of their lifespan, if you guys can remember back to that. So I'm hoping that we start to see a trend of getting back to where these used to be, but I doubt that ends up happening. So when it comes to the events, we still have quite a bit here, so let's continue. So the next thing I want to talk about is, of course, going to be the Lucky Chance event, the crafting event, and the relay bingo. The relo bingo. So let's start off here and talk about the crafting event, right? So the crafting event this time around is going to be very simple. So if you take a look here, basically, not anything too crazy. It's going to be just like the last crafting event for the most part. You're going to be able to craft a sun and a star stone, sun and a star stone, a moon and a star stone, good lord, a star and a moonstone for your EX Krohnen or any of the characters that are going to carry the 1+9,999 tag, right? So what do these stones do? Well, we've talked about it when it comes to Krohnen, but we'll kind of reiterate it here. This one here is going to increase your blast and strike skill damage, and then the final one here is going to be the crit stone. So basically these things have been kind of just, again, I hate to keep using the same term over and over again, standard fare, but hey, that's really what it is. They keep repeating kind of the same things over and over again and just replacing what it's for. So, you know, I think that you would definitely want to at least pick up one of these, since it shouldn't be overly difficult free to play to pick one up. I think that when we talk about how you're going to acquire the rest of these coins, which we already talked about, you can get some from the tower, but then there's going to be another way that you can do it here momentarily that we'll show you. But I think that you definitely want to at least try to pick one of these up, again, because you don't just need to be able to put it on Krohnen, you can put it on any of your characters that are going to have this tag, and it's free stats, right? So the other way that you're going to be able to pick up these coins, however, is actually going to be through a pretty interesting method, and one that I'm actually fairly okay with this time around, so we'll talk about it. So let's talk about the relay bingo, not the relo bingo. So the relay bingo is going to be basically a very standard bingo board, right? We have these events here, you can click on these, you can see what you got to do for these different things. It's not anything too crazy, but really with this, what you're looking at is a lot of decent rewards for really not having to do much of anything for this first board. Now, I can't speak to the next boards because there's actually going to be these here. I'm assuming that it's just going to be, it's going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. In fact, there might be people that as of today have already finished all this. I don't know. So I don't know what these next ones are going to be, but in general, when it comes to the ones that were on here for the standard one, I think it's pretty decent. I don't think it's anything that should exclude most people. Most of these were things that you're already doing on a daily basis anyway. You get some rubies on here. You're going to be able to pick up these ores, which is always nice. Again, I told you guys they're making this stuff a lot more accessible for those. And then you're going to get these rewards here. Now, the rewards, unfortunately, if we take a look here, they tend to be samey across the board for these. So all three tiers are going to have the same thing. They're basically going to be giving you a bunch of fodder, and then you get some hammers. You're going to be able to pick up some capsules. This guy here, in my opinion, is more fodder unless you're a new player. So like I said, a bunch of fodder. In general, I think it's fine, but I don't think it's anything that's overly rewarding, but I do think the rewards that are here are at least decent rewards to good rewards. So I'm not going to complain about this, especially considering so far, and again, I can't speak to what's going to happen once the board switches over, but so far, all the missions seem accessible, and nothing here seems like it's going to be out of the ordinary. So not anything there that is going to bother me too much. The biggest thing with the bingo, though, you're going to notice that each time you clear one of these missions, you're going to be able to pick up these coins, right? Now, these coins that you're seeing here basically are going to allow you to enter into another event where you're going to be able to pick up even more rewards, right? So if we take a look here and we go over to the Lucky Chance event, you're going to see that we have this here. Now, this is where you're going to use these coins. So basically with this, The big thing that you're wanting to pick up here is going to be this Lucky Exchange Shop coin, right? This Lucky Exchange Shop coin is what your big prize is going to be. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to come in here with the points that you've gathered up. You're going to redeem them here, and then you're going to just click here, and then you're going to pick up whatever the corresponding reward is that it lands on, right? Whenever you land on this guy here, it's going to give you the option to reset the board. You can reset the board, and so on and so forth. Now, typically speaking, these types of events aren't necessarily anyone's favorite. However, this time around, this one seems like it is fairly decent. I don't think that this one is going to upset too many people. As you guys can see, I've already made 7 rounds around this board. We have a lot of time with this event. And when I show you what you're going to be able to exchange for, you're going to be pretty happy with those. Also, you're going to probably notice that this shouldn't be anything that is overly difficult for you to finish up, to exchange everything you might want out of that exchange shop by the end of this 17 days. So if we take a look here, though, the rewards are pretty good stuff. I think that overall everything here is pretty good. You get a lot of tokens in here for things such as your unified banners. So in general, this is going to be really rewarding for people who are new players or intermediates who don't have a lot of this stuff. So a lot of this stuff is going to be very valuable to them. For those of us veterans, there may or may not be stuff here that we would consider a mixed bag, but you know, it is going to be something that is designed for everybody to take part in, and so therefore there has to be some stuff there for everybody. And I think they did a pretty decent job this time around of setting this up to where there's some pretty rewarding stuff on here for rolling. Now, what are you using these on, though, is the big question, because you're wanting to pick these up and get as many of them as you possibly can. However, what are you wanting to use them on? Well, I'm going to show you guys, but first I want to show you one other thing. So there's going to be an event up here, right? We take a look. You're actually going to have an event mission here where if you play the defeat the enemies on the beach one time, you're going to pick up these tokens, right? So you're going to be able to pick up even more of these here. So in my opinion, with this, basically, you're going to want to make sure that you are doing everything in your power to get through this thing, because I do think that by the end of it, you could end up getting quite a few of these. And like I said, the exchange shop for this is pretty decent. But in general, I think that you really want to try your best with this, and you'll be in good shape by the end of it as long as you are doing your due diligence. And as far as what you're exchanging for here, well, if you guys take a look, you're going to notice that there is a BS generic memory, right? So there's a BS generic memory for 3 of those coins. Not anything too crazy. Like I said, again, make sure that you're doing everything in your power to get through that thing to pick up as many of those as possible. Because, hey, you pick up 3 of them, you can get a generic memory for a BS character. But this is also going to be where you can pick up more of these, right? So I think that overall, getting the stone for the 1 plus 9,999 and this generic memory shouldn't be too difficult. I think by the end of this event, being that it was about 20 days or so that we've had it since the beginning, it shouldn't be overly hard for anybody to do. So I think that this is a pretty accessible event. I don't think it's necessarily as gated as some of the ones have been in the past, and I'm pretty happy with it. So overall, I think that's about going to do it for most of the update. I don't think there's really much else here we need to talk about. I can go ahead and show you guys real quick, just briefly touch on this. But the stones this time around for the EX Fighters for Volume 3, we've got the Circle Stone giving us EX Fighters active skill damage up. And then when it comes to the Square Stone, we are going to have, as you guys will see right here, you're going to have an increase to your burn damage, which is really good because it isn't on Awakening, kind of like that one we had on EX Volume 1. Really good stuff. And then finally, on the Hex Stone, you're going to increase your EX Fighter's active 3 skill damage. So the stones this time around were really good. Of course, you get those for awakening your Krohnen. Overall, by the end of this, you can pick up more of these coins as well, so you get some bonus ones here, so that way you can actually pick up and get yourself that other stone without having to spend money on packages. If you're going to be investing on Krohnen, which of course we've talked about Krohnen, we've talked about Kyo, we've talked about the character banners and the card banners, which we're not going to be going back into today. I've already told you guys the card set, in my opinion, is a must-have. Krohnen is one of, if not the best characters in the game right now, and overall, SS Kyo is in a much better position, but he isn't necessarily anything that's a must-have or broken or anything like that. He's kind of just a mid-tier character at this point, but in general, that is the update, right? So long overdue, I know, but we got through it. I think that this event update was decent. I don't think that it's anything that is crazy good, but I don't think it's anything that is necessarily negative either. I think that this time around that they did a good job of making these a little bit inclusive for everybody as far as picking up some of these rewards, even with us having something that is normally going to be a bit of a controversial point in the Lucky Chance event. So this time around, I think they did a pretty good job with the update. For one that was postponed the way it was, I think that they pulled it together and got a pretty good update out of it. So you guys can let me know in the comment section down below what you think of all this, but I do think that the rewards this time around are more rewarding. The events are a little bit more inclusive, with the exception probably of the tower, I would suppose, but you guys can let me know in the comments section down below. That is going to do it for me. For those of you who are new here or not aware, I do not work on holidays, and Monday is the 4th of July. So for those of you here in the United States, be safe this weekend. Please don't blow yourself or anyone else up. And with all that being said, I will not have a video on Monday, so please be aware of that. Do not expect a video on Monday. I will be back on Tuesday. But I hope you guys have a safe, awesome holiday weekend if you celebrate it. And until the next one, you guys take care. Peace.
Continue.